Greetings all you movie junkies and entertainment lovers, and welcome to another top 10 video. Today we're going to be counting down my top 10 favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt. And this is essentially kind of a follow-up video to my retrospective I just did on Tales from the Crypt, so be sure to check that out if you haven't. And yeah, so let's get right into it. These are my top 10 favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt. So at number 10, we have The New Arrival. This is definitely one of the more sort of macabre-esque type of episodes of the series, and there's not really much in the way of gore and blood and violence in comparison to many of the other episodes, but there's a lot of really spooky sort of tone and scenery throughout the episode. This one I don't think is going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it's definitely my cup of tea, so that's The New Arrival at number 10. At number 9, we have And All Through the House. This one focuses on a woman who makes the mistake of murdering her own husband while an escaped mental patient dressed in a Santa Claus outfit breaks into her house. And this one is also directed by, of course, the great Robert Zemeckis. And this one is just a really great, fun, creepy one. It's very creepy and it's very atmospheric, and the setup of it I think is really great. And there's something for me about, you know, whenever they mix Christmas with horror that I think always makes for some interesting stories. And this is definitely, I think, one of my personal favorite sort of horror Christmas tales, if you will. So it's definitely a fun one to check out if you're a horror fan around the holidays. And of course, who doesn't love, you know, a good old maniac in a Santa suit? I mean, you can't really go wrong. So that's And All Through the House at number 9. At number 8, we have Carrion Death. This one focuses on a recently escaped serial killer who has unforeseen complications when he is pursued by a determined motorcycle cop in a barren desert landscape. This one is a very simple episode, and when you watch it, you're gonna be wondering kind of where is this going for a while, but honestly, it's something about this one. I think it's really just the setting of this one that makes me really like it so much. There's something about sort of the vast sort of desert landscape of it, that sense of, you know, no one's around, no one's there to help. And the way that this episode kind of escalates and kind of leaves you hanging for a long time in a weird and interesting way is something that I really like. Probably has one of my personal favorite endings of the series. It's not really anything that's gonna blow your mind, but it ends in a way that I think is very satisfying, but also very, you know, sort of Tales from the Crypt kind of way as well. So that's Carrion Death at number 8. At number 7, we have Death of Some Salesman. This one focuses on a very convincing con man who poses as a salesman who ultimately gets a lot more than he bargained for when he knocks at the door of the wrong family, all of which are played by the wonderful actor Tim Curry. This one is definitely sort of has very much a Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of feel to it. I think what makes this one great is the performance by Tim Curry playing all of the different roles that just show how great of an actor that he truly is. And there's a lot of really dark comedy thrown in. This is just a really great mix of, you know, comedy and horror and suspense. And yeah, especially if you're a Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan, this one's definitely worth checking out. So that's Death of Some Salesman at number 7. At number 8, we have Television Terror. This one focuses on a shock journalist who gives an on-air tour of a supposedly eerie haunted house that he doesn't exactly believe in, but he ultimately gets a lot more than he bargained for when he enters the house itself. This is definitely one of my favorites of the series, and it's very prolific with the sort of structure of sort of delving into the reality TV aspect of it, which at this time really was not as big as it would become later on, especially, you know, now. So I think it was definitely an episode that in some ways was very much ahead of its time, and it really is just the format of it that I think really makes this one, I think, special and unique to watch. And it's probably one of the most shortest episodes of the series, so it's very short and it's very sweet. So it's a very short, sweet episode. So that's Television Terror at number 6. We have Corman's Calamity. This one focuses on a cop that learns of the illustrator of the Tales from the Crypt comic itself might have the power to make its monstrous creations come to life. Honestly, I'm surprised to see this one. This isn't really necessarily regarded as one of the better episodes of the series, but to me, I absolutely love this episode. I think maybe for some people it might be a little too silly and too sort of B-movie-ish, I guess. But honestly, that's totally, what it is. That's totally what it's going for. And for me, the whole meta aspect of this, actually including the Tales from the Crypt comic book in it, I think is just really what makes this one special. The meta aspect of it, I remember, the first time watching this is really what made me, I think probably this was really the episode that really made me a big fan of this series. They did one episode, I remember later on, where it was kind of that meta aspect of them including the actual Tales from the Crypt comic, but it wasn't done in quite the same way as it was done in this episode. It's definitely one of my personal favorites, but again, not going to be everyone's cup of tea. So that's Corman's Calamity at number 5. At number 4, we have Freeze a Crowd. This one focuses on a married couple who is trying to enjoy their anniversary. However, the husband is sure that his wife is cheating on him, but when he ultimately finds out the truth, it costs him dearly. Really not much really happens in it, but it's the twist that makes this episode worth it. The twist will absolutely make your stomach turn. It's just so shocking, so jaw-dropping, so effective, and yeah, definitely one of the best twists in the series, and ultimately it is the twist that makes this episode worth watching and what makes it so high up on the list. A nasty and grim ending that is very well acted, and again, that twist is really, turning everything on its head is really what makes it great. And it's one of those where you really think afterward about what happened next, but at the same time you don't want to know what happened next because it's just so horrible. But yeah, fantastic episode that does a great job of catching you, the viewer, off guard. So yeah, definitely one of my favorites. So that's Freeze a Crowd at number 4. Number 3, we have Cutting Cards. This one focuses on a pair of gamblers who don't exactly play for fun. They challenge each other in a simple game of cards, and at the end result could be deadlier than they bargained for when they decide to play Russian roulette, which ultimately then leads them going down a much darker path and a much darker competition. One of the most shortest episodes of the series. It's only 20 minutes long, and yet somehow it just works. I think I've probably watched this episode more than any other episode. I just think that it's wonderfully silly, but at the same time, I think it's also just wonderfully short and sweet. And again, there isn't really any shocking twist in this one. It's just things just escalate and escalate over the course of the 20 minutes. And it's really, the two leads as the characters of Reno and Sam and their whole rivalry that they put into this. I mean, you really feel it radiate off the screen. And the humor in this one, I think, is probably the strongest of the series. There's a lot of legitimately funny moments. And the fact that these two guys have it out for each other this much is, I think, what makes it so funny. The fact that, and seeing how far they're willing to go in their sort of, competition against each other. So it's, in my opinion, I think it's a really fun episode. I've watched it a dozen times. And honestly, I wish it was longer, but it's a lovely, short and sweet episode. So that's Cutting Cards at number 3. At number 2, we have Four-Sided Triangle. This one, it focuses on a farmer who is attracted to the young Mary Jo, a simple young woman who helps out with the chores around the farm. The problem is, she's in love with a scarecrow. Probably one of the most bizarre episodes of the series. I don't think this one will be very high up on most people's lists for when it comes to top 10 favorite episodes, but I've watched this one a bunch of times, and I don't know, there's something about it that just I really like a lot. I will say that I have said before in the past that I am just a big sucker for, scarecrows in cornfields and stories about, scarecrows coming to life or possibly coming to life. It's something about that setting for, a horror story that I just have always found fascinating and I really like. The twists in this one is really solid and is, I think, a very fitting, and it's one that I think you can kind of see coming. but it still makes it a very satisfying ending, and it's very dark, it's very twisted, but it's also very quite light and, you know, quirky at the same time. So it's a nice blend of sort of, you know, humor, romance, and quirkiness that I really dig a lot. So that's Four-Sided Triangle at number 2. At number 1, this was definitely a tough choice, but ultimately when it came down to it, this particular episode has really grown on me, and honestly I do think that it is the best episode of the series. We have What's Cookin'. This episode focuses on a married couple whose restaurant unfortunately has seen better days. But things change once a stranger walks in with a rather unique steak recipe. The only problem is that the recipe is human remains. This is, I think, the prime example of what this show did so great. Using both dark humor and horror to blend into something that is really special and really unique. And there's something about how this episode, you know, dealing with cannibalism, essentially, and yet it's the way that it's made, it's so like strangely and disturbingly lighthearted in a way, which I think is what I think makes this episode work. So sort of basic, but at the same time its ideas and what's happening is very disturbing, and it's played really well. I think again what makes it so great to me is the fact that for the most part it's pretty lighthearted, it's pretty chipper, and then it kind of goes and takes you into these dark, unsuspecting places that I think Tales from the Crypt does so well. So I think of all the episodes of the series, this is the one that I think has stuck with me the most of all the episodes, and I think is probably the best example of what is so great about the series and what kinds of stories that this series is so great at telling. So that's why I decided to put it at number 1. So that's What's Cookin' at number 1. So there you go, guys, that was my list of top 10 favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt. Feel free to jump in the comments down below and let me know what your top 10 favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt are. And yeah, thanks for watching, be sure to subscribe for more videos, and until next time, be sure to consume as much entertainment as humanly possible, and I will see you in the next video.